Oh, there we are.
Oh, we're officially live now.
We're out here
Doing our thing.
doing our thing.
For anyone that was waiting too long, we apologize. We had some technical issues.
Yeah, my power went out. So,
Like 2 minutes before.
literally 2 minutes before my power went out, and it's over.
But it wasn't all Shaw. Like when she told me that, I was like in the middle of setting up, and I'm like, okay, all right, we're on the same wavelength. We can do this.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. But good, amazing timing. Even my power is in mourning. Wait, I don't know if I can hear us because I have the thing on. I have the stream on. I don't know if our sound's going up.
Is your sound isn't muted, right?
No.
Yeah. Can't wait. Yeah. Can people hear us?
Get up.
Just let us know if you can't hear us and it just looks like just talking mouths with no audio coming out.
Yeah, I don't think they can hear us.
Okay. Let's see. Alright, hold on a second. Bullet says he can hear us clearly.
Oh, okay. Then just what? Don't know what's going on with me. That's awesome. But no, that works out.
Okay, so they can hear us, so let's shall we wait for more people? Shall we just get started?
Did we alert our Discord, which we do have and can link after this episode?
Unexpected. Alright. Let's see. Yeah, we should do that.
I'll do that.
Thank you. I just noticed I clicked away from the Discord channel and then it messed up the camera, so I should not have done that.
Oh no, it's over. It's over.
Okay. Would you say it's Gojo over?
It's so Gojo over. Even my power went out. Like,
Yeah.
even when my power is in mourning, that's when I know it's like just all done.
Yeah, they don't want you talking about this.
They don't everything is sad. It's all sad. So Gojo over. Yeah, I think the official chapter's out, which will be the I don't know how to say. I guess like the 10th time I've read the chapter, but it's the only time I've read it officially. It's just kind of funny to think about.
It's officially out, is it on Viz?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so. I use the Weekly Shonen Jump app. So
Okay.
I use the app on my phone, which I use as the metric. I think it's on Viz though.
I just pulled it up on Viz, it's up on my screen.
Yeah, it's out. They
This
did
is
it.
crazy. Wow. Yeah, the leaks were right.
Well, you know what my favorite thing is that I've noticed, because this is not my first rodeo with shocking manga chapters, and certainly not my first rodeo in terms of everyone buying into the leaks when they like it and then trying to disavow the leaks when they don't like it, which is kind of one of my favorite things. It reminds me of like Attack on Titan 139.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, no, the leaks have to be wrong. And it's like, well, the leaks have been right for 138 chapters. I don't know why they would be wrong now. But yeah, I think that's a pretty funny phenomena.
Yeah, I think especially with Attack on Titan, I think it's because it was the ending. So it was like, no, this has to be fake. This can't be how it ends.
Yes. Which is understandable.
There's only certain levels of cope that you can have there. But with this chapter, I don't know. I think most people kind of just accepted it because they just kind of took it as, yeah, this is it. Because the reaction was so crazy that.
So, I guess before we can still say that we're in we're in still kind of technically pre-spoiler time, but we will be getting into spoilers. How did you find out about the chapter? That's what I want to know first, because I have a funny story, but I want to know you, because I'm kind of deep into this. So I think, the internet's mining my data so much. The internet knows that I'm talking about JJK, I'm talking about Gojo, I'm talking about this. So it's going to feed all that info to me. But you're like kind of in the sphere, but not as deep into it. So I kind of like tracking to find out how everyone found out.
Yeah.
Who's progressively farther away.
It's really interesting. Well, not my story, just in general, the phenomenon of how everybody found out. For me,
which we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So basically, I woke up, opened my Twitter feed, and that was it. It was 9 a.m. and I just see like tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet just reacting about Gojo, and every single tweet has a little bit more snippet of information. And I'm trying to I usually do my thing with spoilers. Like I try to just like glaze over it. I'm like, oh, JJK. Yes. I'm like, I filter out Gojo 236. I filter it out. And then, but there was just so many. And it was just like through each thing I'm skimming, I'm getting a new snippet of information.
So did you see like pages, or did you just see people talking about it, freaking out?
I saw people talking about it. And then I think I gradually like saw pages, and I was trying not to look at the pages, but then I kept seeing the same page, that one page of Gojo, just constantly spammed. And then I'm trying not to look at it, but then it was everywhere. I logged onto YouTube.
And then it was everywhere.
On YouTube. It was there on YouTube.
So I'm like, for better or worse, like I'm pretty aware of like who the leaks people are. I think leak culture is kind of one of those things where like, it's, I don't think anyone is like pro leak, but it's one of those things you kind of get roped into by proxy of just being on the internet. So it's kind of one of those things where like you don't want to go find the leaks, but once everyone already finds the leaks and they're posting about it, kind of like what you said, curiosity gets the best of you, and like we kind of all get dragged into it, even though it's not like the best thing. So I think so just that's my just like general thought on that. But so I saw, my first thing I saw was a screenshot of someone reaching out to the Taliban Twitter PR team.
Oh, that's right. Oh
I saw them reaching out, and they're like, do you have flights to Japan? And I'm like, okay, I know what happens, because no one's reaching out to the Taliban for Sukuna. They're not doing that. And thankfully, the Twitter account for the Taliban was fake, but they were really pissed because, like, I mean, I don't know how fake it is. It just, I know it's not literally the Taliban, I hope. But the whole exchange is really funny. But it's so wild to me. Like, I didn't even see the chapter. I didn't see people talking about it. I saw people reaching out to the Taliban.
That's such a wild story. Like, how did you piece together that, okay, this is about JJK? Because I think you showed me the tweets, and no one explicitly said JJK.
Well, that's kind of what I mean with I'm clued into when the leaks were gonna drop.
Okay.
I knew that on Wednesday that we were gonna get some big news, for better or worse. And when I saw how big the news was, I was like, okay, yeah, I know what happens. I didn't know how it happens, but I do what happens. That was so brutal.
See, I didn't take that seriously. Like, I didn't know that the leaks were going to be such a big deal, because I figured leaks, you'd get some information. Like, I'm not, like we were talking about, like, tuned into it that much, so I didn't know, like, you would get the full chapter on, like, or at least most of it on Wednesday. I figured, oh, like, just some details about what could possibly happen. Not, this is it. This is the whole chapter. So
yeah, so that's crazy. So that's our pseudo intro of like how we found out about the chapter. I don't even know if we did it. I think we did an okay job not overtly spoiling anything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on here, you know this is gonna be a spoiler discussion. There's like,
this is spoilers. This is all big on spoiler. So this is speak now or forever hold your peace. We cannot be responsible for spoiling you any worse than you probably already have.
If somehow you managed to survive the onslaught of the internet for the past few days and are here unspoiled, Let us not be the ones that that spoil you. Turn back now.
I guess before we get into it, Selena had a question of what's the Onimaru take on JJK? So what are your thoughts on it overall? Because you recently caught up and made a great video that everyone should check out. It's anime only friendly, unlike this podcast, which is not anime only friendly.
This is the outlet
go check
I
it out
needed,
the video.
Because I couldn't talk about it on the video. But please watch the video, because my video died with Gojo. The day Gojo died, my video just died the same day, because everybody was just on and on about the leaks. So
that was such bad timing. I feel awful.
It's okay.
Also, we will get into the anime episode that aired this week later. I think there's something interesting too, because I think what we're going to talk about today, which me and Onimaru have kind of planned ahead of time amongst all the memes we sent each other, is we're going to talk about the chapter, obviously, and kind of like the impact of the chapter and like how it kind of like reflects the anime community as a whole and how they react to things. And then we're going to probably get into the episode a bit too, if we have time.
We could also talk about the rest of the manga. If we kind of get into it, we're just going to start with 236, and then we can go backward if necessary. My overall take on the manga was that it was a wild ride. A lot of stuff happened. And I'm kind of glad I caught up for this moment. I'm glad I'm seeing this all unfold live. The chaos has been worth it, So,
like, what people don't know is, like, so we've been recording our episodes in the studio, which we're not in right now, but we were recording our episodes, and then we're planning out episodes ahead of time, and I was in the middle of the Sukuna Gojo fight, and I told Onimaru, I'm like, yo, I think we should catch up to this. This is kind of like the big talking point. This is what a lot of like weekly manga readers are really keyed into. You could either like make a video or, you know, if Onimaru was interested, I was like, if you're interested, you could make a video or we do a podcast on it. So, I'm not good at predicting the outcomes of fights, but I guess I was good at predicting that this would pop off, even though the timing was also bad for your video, unfortunately, which was really good.
Yeah. But I was planning to do it anyway, so it kind of worked out. And then once I caught up, it was like, okay, this is very hype. So I'm glad to kind of be in it. I mean, we could still live stream. We could live stream every week until Gojo comes back. Every week until Gojo comes back.
My Twitter account said, how many days has Gojo been dead? And they said 2. And I'm like, no, go away. Ugh.
And that cues the spoiler discussion. Now we're in spoilers. So
we're in. Okay. So in case you're living under a rock, we're on JJK chapter 236. I guess, should I do a brief summary of what happened beforehand?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I guess if you're watching this in the future and you're not as keyed into everything crazy going on right now, 2 weeks ago, JJK chapter 235, it looked like the near 10+ chapter fight between Gojo and Sukuna, you know, big boss battle in the series that we knew was going to come since like chapter 4 of the series. It looked like the fight had concluded in Gojo's favor. We heard, like, you know, he did a big hollow purple blast. Looked like Sukuna was running out of cursed energy. Gojo had all the cursed energy, and they ended it with one of the people onlooking saying it's Gojo's win. It was not the narrator. It was one of the people onlooking. And then we got a break. We have a break, and now we got the leaks for 236 that came out on Wednesday. It took the internet by storm. I think it was trending internationally to the point where Japanese fans got spoiled by Western fans posting the leaks, which I've never heard of before.
That's crazy.
And it starts off with a dream flashback, not flashback, a dream sequence of Gojo talking to Geto when they were younger students, and they're at the airport in Okinawa, kind of harkening back to the hidden inventory arc, which we know based on the hidden inventory arc and like context clues, that's probably like the happiest time in Gojo's life, right before he became the strongest. And that has led to him commenting on his death, which shocked everyone because we just heard he won the last chapter. And so he's, reflecting on his regrets of how he kind of wanted to tell Megumin about Toji, but Shoko can do it. He didn't get to beat Sukuna. Sukuna didn't go all out. Then he's talking to Nanami, Haibara, just reflecting on his life. And I think he comes out after talking about it feeling content with what happened. And it's a very touching, very touching dream sequence. I actually like it a lot, and we can get into the details on that. And then it goes to what happened in reality, which is Gojo got sliced in half. Like, he just got sliced in half. We got a 2-page spread of him, his top half, lying on the ground, bloody, dying, and looking, kind of content. And then we see Sukuna explaining his move, where he had to use Mahajora, I don't know how to say that, it's like one of Megumin's powers, to figure out how to break through Gojo's infinity. So it kind of gave him the blueprint to use his power against that. And that's what he did, presumably right after the events of 235, death. And then he's explaining it. Gojo's cut in half. That's probably what you saw spread around everywhere. And then he ends with saying, like, Satoru Gojo, I'll never forget you. Relatable. And then it looks like the Thunder guy is going already ready to go fight him. So that's the chapter in simple terms. Did I miss anything?
You kind of got all of it. You got all of it, except how you feel. How did you feel seeing Gojo in that double spread? It's a really crazy transition. Seeing him all happy in the afterlife. Very next page, just completely fucked up.
It's pretty fucked up. I think it was interesting. I think it's kind of, is it safe to say that's a pretty brutal transition?
It's very brutal.
Very brutal. I can't tell.
Would you say it's very kind of Chainsaw Man type of abrupt?
Oh no, I mean.
Or is it next? It's a level above that.
It might be a level above. I think, because here's what's happened when for news first dropped is people were not like, I don't know how much of it was shock value, and people were like confused when they first read the chapter. They're like, wait, we just saw him won. What happened?
So talking about like the rest of the manga that I caught up into this point, I feel like Gege has done this on multiple occasions. And he he does it a lot, like where he'll jump to a point where it'll confuse you, and then he'll retroactively explain what happened. And that's always given me mixed feelings when he does that. Like,
yeah, I think Geiji, I was talking about this. Geiji as a writer is kind of interesting because he does a lot of like intentional gaps, as you kind of said. Like, he'll jump to points in time and go back, or he'll just leave gaps of time where you kind of have to like figure out what's happening in the meantime. Yeah. And I think sometimes it works, sometimes it really doesn't work. So it's kind of tough to differentiate between the two. And it's an interesting writing style, like purposeful omission or purposely changing the perspective in events that happen. It's interesting to think about, and I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So what's funny is, I've been in the trenches of this fight for like, I'd say a bit over half of it. And, as a solid, Team Gojo, we out here, I think most of us were expecting a loss. Like, we knew he either had to get taken out of the story, either due to a death, or he would like lose his power. We were all kind of expecting it. So the fact that it happened like this, which was still surprising, I think was like the next level, because like everyone's expecting this, even though we knew he won. We're like, okay, that's not a good sign. Every time everything was going in Gojo's favor, we're like, it's not a good sign. Geiji, we know he hates him. He's up to something. So we were all on edge for like weeks. We knew. And so I think one of the major complaints for this chapter, which I'm interested to hear about, is that the final move happened off screen. That's the biggest complaint I see, is we didn't even see the final move when we were watching this broadcast to the students. We've seen every move for like, I don't know how many chapters this is. It's 10 or 13. I don't know. I have to go check. But we've seen every step of the way. So why is this the part that doesn't happen? And I think that's what people are up in arms about.
Yeah, actually, I'll be right back for 1 second. I gotta do something real quick, but I will be right back.
Okay, I will be rambling. Don't worry. So, yeah, so it's interesting to think about. Because I don't know what Onimaru has seen. So just for me, I have talked to a bunch of people on it, and I don't know. It's a tough call. I mean, if for everyone who's in chat, what do you think The off-screening thing I think is probably like the biggest gripe. So it'd be interesting to see what you guys think about it too. Funny we should talking about off-screening and then Onimaru goes off-screen. So art imitates life. But I've seen some interesting takes that kind of defend it in terms of, I'm gonna get into that. I'll get into that in a sec. But yeah, how is everyone doing? How did they feel about the chapter? What are thoughts? I want to hear everyone's thoughts. I've been interviewing everyone over the past couple days I like hearing what people think and it helps me cope. Jay Delaby, yeah, Kasakabi, is that his name? Because I forgot about it. He's like, him as a commentator is like me at betting, which is not good, and consistently taking L's. That is consistently where I'm at. Because this is the second time I'm officially 0-2 on being on the winning side for big fights in manga I've been reading weekly. The other time was Hunter x Hunter for a big manga specific fight that I won't spoil, but I was wrong then, and I'm wrong now again. So no one should ask me to bet on them. In fact, I should bet on their opponent. That would be ideal for everyone included. So bullet thing.
All right,
off-screening is fine, isn't it? Oh, okay, great. I'm just reading.
Sorry about that. What did I miss?
You got off-screen, so.
Oh, there you go.
No, I was just asking people what they think about the whole off-screening thing, and then I was explaining my lore of being on the losing side of big manga battles, so no one should ask me to bet on them.
Has this happened to you like more than once?
Well, I guess one more time specifically, and yeah. I was wrong again, so it's cool to be on the losing side consistently. So just asked our chat, like, what do they think about the off-screening thing? Bullet said, off-screening is fine as an idea and would have been great if it was done well. I've seen it done well in Tokyo Ghoul, but it was too jarring from 235 to 236. I haven't read Tokyo Ghoul. Have you read that?
Yeah, I read Tokyo Ghoul.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, Tokyo Ghoul has done some off-screening stuff, but it never really felt like super confusing. Like, so I don't know. It always made sense in Tokyo Ghoul.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, that's good to hear. That's interesting to hear.
I guess, like, without spoiling, like, there was, like, a scene in Tokyo Ghoul where, like, the main character's about to go into a fight, but then it, like, it jumps to a point where he's just been completely wiped out.
Oh, interesting.
So you don't even get anything in between. It just, the fight starts, and then it just ends.
Were people also kind of up in arms about that?
I don't really think so. I think it was just sort of, like, understood that he was kind of out of his league, I think. But if people in the chat kind of remember if people were upset about it, you can enlighten me on that.
Sorry, my turn to get off screen. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember. Oh, okay. Oh, so now I'm gonna have to talk to the chat. So how are you guys doing? Yeah, I don't know. I thought the whole thing with Gojo getting off screen in the chapter, I mean, I could see how it's frustrating and a little annoying, but I also thought, I wasn't surprised, because was anyone surprised that it was going to happen? Because I felt like things, as Shaw was saying, things were going a little too well. He was definitely bound to get one-shotted in the next chapter. That's the feeling I got. But maybe it's all really just about the way Gege did him dirty with that off-screen. Although the send-off was nice. The send-off was pretty nice.
That's why I'm torn. So, okay, so I also saw in chat, it seems like Jay Delaby main gripes in the fact that Gojo only had this section of introspective after he was unsealed. Tom enjoyed the chapter. Alejandro enjoyed the chapter. Okay, that's cool to hear. So at first that was my main gripe, is I'm like, we need to see the move, also because I can't fully like conceptualize the move that happened. Yeah. Like that was my main thing. I'm like, okay, but like what happened? And the explanations have gotten progressively better to the point where I could now explain what happens, like how he got taken out. I saw a really cool reasoning for why people were like, okay, it's not included because something that people have noted is that Sukuna, as like an actual like legendary figure a Japanese legend folklore that like exists outside the story.
Yeah.
So they kind of had this like meta reason for like why we couldn't comprehend his move, and it's because like no one in the story fully comprehends him, even the narrator, none of the characters, because like he exists outside it and is bigger than the story. So part of their theory is like he did a move that like we could not even comprehend in real time. And they've like worded it a bit better than what I'm paraphrasing as, but it was an interesting take on it that like, he reached a new level that like Gojo and everyone couldn't comprehend because he's like a higher feeling of power than Gojo, who we've always been introduced as like the strongest. But then Sukuna was like also possibly the strongest and now has been affirmed as the strongest.
Yeah, and also like you couldn't ever fully understand Gojo's move itself. So that was also had a bit of obscurity to it. So it makes sense that there would be something else out there that is beyond him. Especially since Gojo is still of the human realm, even though he's like crazy.
Yeah, exactly. He's still human, and Sukuna is like a cursed object who's lived for thousands of years.
Yeah, yeah. And Mahoraga himself is just this crazy like. He's a curse, right? Yeah, he's a curse.
He's like a spirit, like a Shinigami that they get summoned.
Yeah, that, they were kind of like alluding to like for the past 3 arcs or 4 arcs that like Megumi has this thing that's like really crazy and it's like a last ditch effort because they can't fucking control it. So,
Yes, exactly. Cause
And for Sukuna to want that power and Megumi so much, it's like, okay, there's more here than just, cause Sukuna kind of took care of him pretty easily during the was it Shibuya or was it the Culling Games? One of those arcs where Sukuna had to took care of Mahoraga.
Yeah, I think he took it. Well, it was also the previous fight, right? Because he fought that girl Rizuya who's in like Megumi's sister's body.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So we saw him use it. We knew he could summon that and use that.
Well, I wasn't talking about him using it. I was talking about when
Megumi
Sukuna had to and Sukuna had to like face it and seal it.
Yeah, I think that was Shibuya, yeah.
Yeah. So, that was kind of like, oh, what was the big deal about this thing then? Sukuna can easily take care of it, but I'm like, there's probably more to it that, we're not being led on to, and this is what it was, so.
I agree. I just don't know if it got destroyed or not. That's what I'm curious about, because if it's destroyed, then they can't fully summon it, but they can use its power, I think, with other Shinigami. That's a bit confusing. That's also kind of a big problem. It's not a big problem. It's a slight gripe I have, whatever, is that I think part of the things I'm still torn on if I'm okay. I've come to terms that the move has been off-screened. I don't know if I'd prefer seeing it or even seeing some hints of it. Like, even if we got a jump cut from like Gojo looking happy to like him being in his dream, like if we got a jump cut to that, which I could see happening in like the inevitable anime adaptation later down the line, I could see some interesting editing with that. Even if we got something like that hints at what happened, I would be a bit cooler with it. But my big reason I like to see it is because so many of these things are so conceptual that like I don't really understand them half the time, and it helps to have that visual understanding. And also like the power system is kind of like tough to grasp sometimes. So like it really helps when you have like an explanation and a visual, because sometimes the power system things are a bit too out there for me to just rely on one or the other.
I think Gege has tried to do like visuals, but every time he does visuals, at least for me, it always comes off very convoluted and it doesn't like help me get it any better. I don't know. My issue now that I've caught up with the power system, because we did talk about this on our last podcast before I'd even read, is that like it didn't really get any better. A lot of it is very vague. It's all like very like things weren't introduced early on and kind of grounded in that for you to have a good foundation of understanding it. It's kind of presented and explained later, and a lot of times retroactively as it goes. So it kind of makes it feel very confusing.
Like, and I think that's also like emphasized to the most in like Culling Games, where we got like all these new sorcerers coming out, and it's like curse techniques. To me, the only way I can really think of them and like describe them is like it's essentially just like Nen and it's like Nen and spirit power from Yu Yu Hakusho. Like I just think it's just like, people will just make up powers, and if they have the curse energy to do it, cool. And then if they do a main expansion, they get a one shot hit, And I've seen a lot of really creative powers since the beginning of Culling Games, which I'm not knocking on, like, seems some really cool stuff, but it's hard to follow it as a system instead of just taking it as, like, this person has this powers, this is this. Like, they kind of exist independently of the system for me sometimes.
Yeah, like, it felt like, once we started getting introduced to the judging, the guy with the judge powers.
Lawyer Bro.
The
I like Lawyer
Bro. The guy with the, what's his name? The guy with the pachinko parlor powers, that gets the power boost. The guy that's on the good guy side.
Hakutsu or something? Yeah.
That guy. Yeah. Once we started seeing those powers, it's like, okay, this is definitely like, they're trying to do the thing where we're just going to make up powers and we're just going to make it work for the explanation in world. But unfortunately, like, because there hasn't been an actual breakdown of like how it all works in terms of the powers, you kind of just have to take it as is and be like, okay, well, these things can exist because powers. Versus like in Hunter x Hunter with Nen, you will get the full explanation of how it works. It's like Nen has been crafted to be like this science now, where it's like, if you do this and that, this is how you get this.
It's very interesting to see kind of a lot of the commentary on like people reacting to JJK and like the choices it makes, which are very like fights first, explanation second, as we kind of noted, or like fights first, character moment second, which we can get into in a bit. It's very interesting to see those decisions as kind of like seeing people react to that, especially coming from the background that we both have with like older shonen with like Jojo, Hunter x Hunter, where I've seen so many complaints of it getting too bogged down in the details, and to now see people kind of like flip on the other side, and they're kind of like, actually, I wish we knew more about the power system. I wish we had a bit more like breathing room in between the moments, when I've seen Hunter x Hunter get a bit of criticism for it. It's very interesting to see, and it's like, not saying it like pro Hunter x Hunter, anti JJK. I just think it's interesting to see. A lot of times I feel like people kind of have either rose-tinted glasses, or they're sometimes just not satisfied with something that they claim to want. And of course, execution comes into play. Like you can do both and have a good execution for it. But it is interesting, just like a lot of these complaints I've seen for one or the other, and now it's like the opposite sometimes. If that makes sense.
It's tough to like be in that boat, because it's like you're not really trying to compare. Because I've seen obviously people be down in Hunter x Hunter when it's like, oh, it's just walls of text or like explanation, and then it's like, yeah, but like at least like if I sat there and read it, it would make sense. So I don't know. Right. And also I'm kind of down on it because like if with JJK it specifically like really bogged me down because I was trying to binge it quickly, and so but while I was going through the Culling Games, I'm like, but shit, I have to understand this, or I want to understand this. So I have to like sit there and read through it and be like, I still don't get it, like, or I don't fully get it. So it's frustrating.
Yeah, and I think one of the big gripes, as Bullet mentioned this, and I think this is very indicative of how a lot of people feel, that I feel there wasn't enough introspection during the Gojo and Sukuna fight, and a lot of introspection was jam-packed in that dream. Also, the month time skip before the fight was such a bad move. So this is ultimately, I think what it all comes down to is like, it's not as, well, it's kind of evident for us because we binged it all, but like, you know how like Culling Games happen, Sukuna takes over Megumin's body, they get Gojo out of the prison realm, that happens very quickly, kind of like back to back. And then it's like Gojo is like, okay, we're gonna fight on this date. And they have a month time skip from November to December 24th. And we got like no insight, virtually very little insight into things that happened during that month period, which might not seem like a big deal for other series, but like keep in perspective, the entire JJK story has taken place over 6 months.
Yeah.
Like Shibuya took place one night. Gojo got locked up in universe for 19 days. He was only locked up for 19 days.
Yeah.
And we just cut a month into the future with very little like downtime, introspection. I think a lot of people were understandably using that as the point to be like, okay, Gojo's out. Let's reflect on the comrades we've lost, the people, what the situation, what's going on. Like, it would be a perfectly natural time to take a few chapters to just be like, okay, let's reset. What happened? How do we feel about this? What do we have to fight for now? What are our strategies? It's like a perfect time to reset and regroup, reestablish things. And instead we just went right to the fight. And that's a big thing. And that's the consequences of that, I think, are playing out in this chapter as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, actually. I didn't think about that too much, but that's kind of in line with everything that's happened to this point. Not a lot of downtime, which really helps you connect with the characters and kind of, you want to see, like, how they feel about things. But knowing Gege, I feel like that month might be something he uses for later, where he's like, okay, so this development that, happened now really was caused by this month. I don't know, like, stuff that started happening in this month that they had. Or it could not be used at all.
Things with him, he's kind of a wild card. For better or worse, sometimes both simultaneously. I don't know what he's going to do next. And that's been kind of a constant. I genuinely don't know what he's going to do. I think, people always say this, and it's kind of cringy to say now that we're in a post Attack on Titan, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones world, but no one is safe. I genuinely feel no one is safe, especially after this chapter. No one's fucking safe. And it does keep you on the edge of your seat to see, like, what kind of shit will he pull. I don't know if it'll be satisfying, but he'll pull some shit, and we'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, we're there.
At least the one rule that I've kind of kept from the post Game of Thrones, post Walking Dead, post whatever world is that if you don't see a body, they're not fucking dead. So I still don't think Nobara might be dead. I think they're just, kind of stringing us along.
That's a very interesting thing, too, because so I'm in the same boat where it's obviously been made to be vague and obscure in case he decides to bring her back. But I think now that we're getting, like, very clearly into the end game, if he doesn't bring her back very soon, it's going to feel very unsatisfying to have her miss, like, half the series just doing what, Or also, how would she be powerful enough to, like, fight the current foes? Like, we're kind of running out of time for that to come back and be an effective measure. I would love to see it, but we're running out of time for that. That's just my take on it.
I'm really down on her development as a character. Like what they've done with her has just been so bad. Like,
you don't like it?
No, because they haven't done much with her. Like, if you think about it, if you think about the context of the whole story and how they, like, set her up and brought her on the team, like, literally she was only there for, like, the one thing with Yuji when they first met up, when they were like, when you first get introduced to her and her cursed tool powers, then she was at the Kyoto Goodwill event, and then they had the death painting arc, and then Shibuya, and that was it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like, I don't like saying this too much because I feel like it can be like really dismissive, but it really does feel more of like a, what's the word I'm thinking of? I don't like saying it, so then I don't think of it. It's like a kind of a plot device sometimes where it's like she's kind of using it for, shock factor instead of her character. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's submersive to have her get killed off so soon and to be such a shocking factor for, like, Yuji's development. Like, that's a very shocking move.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it's kind of like you can't have your cake and eat it too. We're getting to the point where, like, he needs to bring her back and have some kind of meaningful reason as to what has happened and what she will do, or he just has to keep her dead. It's one or the other. We can't bring her back in the last fight, and then that's just something.
And I guess what I was trying to say, because I also realized, like, a lot of them haven't been in too many, like, fights pre-Shibuya. Like, it was really not actually a lot has happened, because it is such a small time span. It's just a lot has happened in those, like, in those condensed events. But I just don't think Nobara got a lot of moments to shine before she was kind of, like, off. Like, her only moment of, like, I guess real shining was, like, on her own was, like, the death painting arc.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think that's a great point. It's also just like, I agree. I think it's a great point. That's why, it's kind of a weird spot. It's a very weird spot to be in.
Really, really quick, Jay Della Beat asked me a while ago, I see on the chat here, what's your favorite Culling Games match? So for me, it was hands down the Yuta, what's the name, Yuta? Yeah, the Yuta fight. With like the 3-way or 4-way fight. That was crazy. Yeah. That was so fun. Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
I know we're getting into, like, not 236 related content, but I do want to talk about it just because it relates later. I really have grown to like Yuta a lot more as the series progressed. I really like his role in the story where he comes in at the end of Shibuya and he's like, oh yeah, I will be Yuji's executioner. I think that's where they're going to end the anime. I think that's, like, a really cool transition into the next arc. I like how he shows up, pretends to kill Yuji, and then is like, no, we're both, Sensei believes in you, he believed in me. We were both set to be like executed because the higher ups are like, fuckheads who don't believe in us. Like having that bond and then having him in the story and getting to see how much his powers have grown. I really like that. And I think it's kind of one of the few times, we are reading like a Japanese comic, and obviously like you can sometimes go back to like Marvel, how they have so many different like point of views where, we got to see in the Avengers so many different main characters of other stories coming together. I feel like this is kind of one of the few times we really get like an Avengers feel where we have multiple main characters in the same story, where like I could just as easily see the focus switching back and forth from Yuji and Yuta and it feeling equally deserved in terms of like main character focus. I don't know how to describe that. It's like a real comic book, like multiverse feeling to me, if that makes sense.
I think what's really cool about it is that he was a main character for Jujutsu Kaisen 0, so that's what gives it its feeling. Like he had his own fleshed out like story, like completely removed from Yuji. So it makes it easy because like now you've been in his head and you know him as a main character, so it's easy to just, it's a smooth transition to be like, okay, now he's taking the wheel and now we're focused on him. So that's kind of what made it cool. It's nice seeing him back and seeing where he's been since like 0. Because by the way, during the video and like catching up and working on this stuff, I like rewatched 0. I reread it in the manga. I read the flashback arc like 5 times. And so revisiting, so I read 0 in the manga and then going back to the movie, I didn't realize how fucking good the movie is.
The movie, okay, can I tell like a really cringe story that's like possibly, it might make you cringe.
Sure.
So my husband is watching, I'm sorry guys. It's not as cringe as you might think. It's cringe for me.
Maybe we won't find it cringe.
You might have to cringe. So my husband's watching Jujutsu Kaisen for the first time. We did, and I'm like, yo, I'm going to watch. It was right before, we had that like 5-week break before Shibuya.
Yeah.
So I was before the Shibuya anime dropped. And I'm like, I'm going to be watching it Thursday. I'll watch it again with you. But like, I'm watching it when it comes out. Like, I'm not waiting. And so we did like a big catch up. He saw season 1, loved it. And then because of 5 episodes for season 5, for season 2 were out, we watched that. Then we watched the movie. It's like the last thing we have to watch. We're so hyped. I forgot how good it was too. I was enjoying it. We see like all these ticks on my dog, and we're spending half of the movie like taking ticks off my dog painstakingly, and like we're pausing it nonstop. Like this is like the movie is like 2 hours. We spend 5 hours watching this movie because we keep breaking because we find ticks on my dog, and it was like the most like excruciating experience of
I know that pain. I have had to take ticks off of my dog and it's the worst.
You totally get it.
Big.
It was so and it's so bad. So the juxtaposition between like taking ticks off my dog, which is like the worst thing ever, finding more ticks, and then just trying to enjoy this movie. And we found all of them during the final fight scene between Geto and Yuta. Like the high point that everything had built up to. Dog fine. We're watching the movie, enjoying it. And it's still my husband's favorite anime movie that we've watched. So he loves it. I think it's really great. It was really great to see in retrospect. And I do think I definitely underrated it and when I watched it the first time around. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, no, I think I liked it. I actually really liked it the first time around when I watched it, but I like kind of forgot about it. Like I just didn't put too much thought into it. But now revisiting, I'm like, yo, this is really good. This is a really good adaptation. This goes hard.
Very good adaptation. And I think it just works really well. I'm very excited. I do like the setup. I've been talking with people about it. Like another complaint.
Well, actually, I do have to say that going from Ghetto's going from the flashback arc back to 0 is great.
Yeah, I think it's actually good timing. You get to see that, and that was kind of my experience. It's like I remembered it, but like seeing those two it's so jarring, but it works out. But I was thinking of something. What was I thinking? Something that I see a lot of people kind of complain about is like Yuji's not the main character. Actually, I'm gonna just answer the question because Bullet asked thoughts on Yuji. Most people don't like him, but to me, the peaks of the story are always involve him or Gojo, like the moment with the lawyer and how he felt guilt, and like the Mahito Wolf moment, which will be hype. So Yuji is probably like my 3rd favorite character in the story, and I really enjoy him a lot. I think I really enjoy his the way he's used in the story. I enjoy his perspective, and I've enjoyed the way he has progressed throughout the series. I think something that's interesting is like, I'm not like a big like main character person has to be there all the time. Like, if the main character is on screen, that's great. If something else interesting is happening and the main character is not on screen, I'm cool too. Like, I don't need my main character to be there the majority of the time. You know, Hunter fan, we've been new. So Yuji has gotten a lot of complaints where people were like, is he even the main character anymore? What is he doing? I think him not feeling like the main character is part of the appeal of his character, because my dude has possibly gone through the most demoralizing story and progression I've seen in a Battle Shonen series. Like, I don't think I've seen anyone actually get so absolutely screwed over fight after fight after arc, like nonstop. Yeah. Even when he wins, it's not even really a win. He gets the win taken out of him. Yeah. And the fact that he's like changed his perspective and changed over time, I think is so interesting. But we can get into that. Yeah. What do you think about him?
He went from, I want to save everyone, to, you know what? I'm just fine being a cog in the machine, guys. I just want to kill curses. I mean, Yuji's had it fucking rough, but Yuji's also supposed to be kind of like the everyman sort of outsider to this world. But there is more to him. I'm like, I don't hate Yuji, so I don't have any problems with him. I would also kind of hold off my overall verdict on him, just because I feel like there is more they're gonna do with him, and they just haven't revealed it yet. Like, they're building up to something. His whole mindset shift, the whole cog in the machine thing, now him sort of losing Sukuna, and just, you know, watching himself being helpless while like not being able to do anything, while Sukuna and his henchmen just kind of laugh at him. Like, he's just getting like dogpiled by all this stuff. So maybe in a post-Gojo world, now it's going to be on Yuji to kind of step up or unlock something. I don't know. I do have a batshit theory, though. I do have a batshit theory that I did tell Shaw. And I'm going to say it now in case it does happen. But I'm going to preface this with, I did say batshit, so I don't fully believe it. So Gojo dies, but they don't dispose of the body, so Gojo becomes a curse. Now that he's a curse, and because we've seen so much body swapping and shit in the manga with people coming back and stuff, he takes over Yuji. He possesses Yuji. Yuji now works in tandem with him, gains his curse technique, the 6 eyes, the limitless ability, and they go and curb stomp Sukuna. That's it. And that way, the main character gets to set things right, but also has the power of Gojo, bringing together the power of the modern-day sorcerers, all against the past.
Unfortunately, the way that would be a good theory. I do agree with the thought process on it, but I think they confirmed that people only come back as curses if they're not taken out with a curse technique.
Fuck.
Hey, it might happen. We could have something similar to that. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
My batshit theory is because they mentioned that Yuji is essentially a cursed object in and of himself, who's been soaked in Sukuna's cursed energy for so long. And we saw throughout the series, but specifically in the last couple chapters, that like Gojo's hollow purple didn't do as much damage on him because it's his own curse technique, as in you are more, if your curse technique, an attack from your curse technique hits you, you're more immune to it than other people. So I think Yuji is in a perfect spot to take on Sukuna because his cursed energy will not be as strong at Yuji.
Okay.
But so here's my thing. We can go back to the actual chapter because it does kind of go back to it. I think something I saw that a second biggest complaint that I saw towards the chapter was people didn't like how in the dream sequence Gojo was hyping up Sukuna instead of reflecting on his students and stuff. So 2 things. I want to see what you think about it too. My thoughts on it are like, Gojo was reflecting on his regrets in the beginning of the chapter. I don't think he regrets his students. I think he feels fully confident in them, and he always has. And 2, in regards to people saying like, well, why is he saying that, like, you know, Sukuna could have easily defeated him, whatever. A lot of people are kind of getting caught up on this, like, one character expresses an opinion on another character, and they kind of take that as like an absolute fact. And they did that with like Nanami too, where like Nanami's like, well, you never really cared about saving. You were just out there kind of like, you cared about fighting and the Jujutsu sorcerer show, like you cared about that. And so they took that as confirmation that Gojo doesn't care about his students, which we know is not true because we've seen Gojo care about his students. And we know from Nanami's perspective, he and Gojo are in complete opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of goals. Like Nanami's view is like adults should take care of this and not leave the burden onto kids, whereas Gojo is like, I'm going to raise everyone up to be on my level, even if that puts kids in danger because they need to learn to grow strong in this world so they don't get left behind. Two completely different perspectives. Nanami doesn't have the absolute view of Gojo, just like Gojo in the same chapter doesn't have the absolute view on Sukuna, because as soon as we go back to reality, Sukuna was saying how like his plan was like a 1 in a million chance plan that somehow worked out, and then he's praising Gojo. So like I think I've seen some confusion on that regard, which I don't agree with. I'm not sure if you had any gripes on that.
That just overall, that Gojo, just him not reflecting on his students, that just is the main kind of issue.
It's been the second gripe. The biggest gripe I've seen people on the chapter have is they don't like the off-screening, and then they don't like that he wasn't reflecting on his students in the afterlife.
I didn't even think about that. I didn't even have that as a... I didn't think that was a problem. Because, like, he's been thinking about his students the whole time. Like,
yes.
Like, since the beginning, he's been wanting to cultivate them. He's mentioned them. That's why he's wanted to, like, save Yuji and help them out. Like, they've been on his mind, but his role is just so fundamentally different because, like you said, he's the strongest, so he has to kind of be a pillar. So that's kind of been forced onto him, being that role. So he kind of just embraced it. And so, like, by the end, like, that reflection in the afterlife, that's kind of, like, finally, like, when he can finally let his, like, guard down. Like, when he can finally just be himself with people that he was himself with. Because if you realize in the flashback arc, like, when him and Geto were still a duo, that was, like, the only time in his life where he could just actually be chill and be friends with someone that was his equal. So it was just like, yo, like, this is my bro. We're in this together. After that, it was like Gojo had to go solo, so he had to become the strongest, and then he never had that with anyone else again. So.
I think that's so sad, too. I think I can't praise enough the like anime adaptation for that arc, and just like the way it's so framed in general that we've seen throughout the series of like at the end of Hidden Inventory, it's like him dreaming about his time. Like you can tell he's dreaming about 10 years ago when he's the happiest in his life, and we see that also reflected in this afterlife dream sequence. Like this point in this like Okinawa airport when he's surrounded by people, when he's next to Geto when they were back equals, like this is the happiest point of his life. And I think that's really sad to think about. Like, obviously he made connections afterwards, but nothing was as happy as when he was like understood by others. And that's like really impressive character work. You know, I think I've kind of said this like as a joke, but like joking serious. It's so funny because we have I think Geje has the bit where he hates Gojo, and like he has all the funny comments in the series about like, you know, now that Gojo is sealed, it'll be a good year. And it was not a good year. That was the beginning of 2020. It was not a good year. But I do think that, like, Geije is cursed that, like, whenever he's writing Gojo, he's at his best. I don't think he does as good a job writing anyone as Gojo, especially his dynamic with Geto. Like, whenever he's doing that, he's in his bag. That's him at his best, which I think is funny to think about.
The quality of the flashback arc, or Gojo's past arc, was actually, like, a lot better, like, than anything else. I don't know. Yeah. Like, the art went hard, the story, the nuance, everything was there. I'm like, I thought he hates this guy.
Really interesting to think about, because, like, kind of what I think we're on the same page where, like, I think Geji would benefit from slowing down a bit and giving his characters more introspection, more time to reflect on the dynamics around them. Like, just give them more time to breathe and react to the emotional situations around them. That's what I want. I don't need like 10 chapters of like people sitting around talking. I need characters to react to everything that's going on and that has gone on that we are reacting to in real time. And I think for whatever reason, it hasn't been a priority for Geji. I'm not like blaming him. I understand like the mangaka lifestyle is really grueling. I think some people have felt like he's trying to rush to get to the end. I can't blame him. They have crazy schedules, but like it's definitely not been a priority. And I think whenever Gojo shows up, it does end up becoming a priority, at least for this chapter, which is also why I'm pretty convinced he's dead. He's not going to come back, even though I would like to cope that.
Yeah.
The cope has
Again,
has
we
diminished.
we can stream until he comes back.
We can stream. Would people like that for us?
Stream 57. Gojo's still not back, but we still believe out here. We're still waiting. Manga's ended, but we're still here. Gojo's gonna come back.
That'd be funny. Cope squad going strong. I think that would be really funny. But
there was I do have to say though, like if you take the fight as a whole, like the whole Gojo versus Sukuna, I think like what a way to go out. Like seriously, I think
fantastic fight, right?
Yeah, like a Gojo, especially if like you binged it. I could see like if you were reading weekly, maybe you were just like, all right, get to the outcome already, see what's happening, you know.
I was binging weekly, and that made it fun to speculate. But I agree with you. The binge is good, too. I think some people are getting fed up. But I think they're fed up. I think, in general, I think a lot of the complaints for this fight and this chapter, and specifically, are the consequence of things that have gone on earlier. Because I think if we just look in a vacuum, this is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and you know what?
I feel like it was just so fun, like seeing Gojo, like after not having him for like all of Shibuya and Culling Games, whatever, for him to come back. It's like personality was injected back into the manga. I don't know if that's rude to say, but it just, he made it like so like fun and like lighthearted, and like it was just kind of cool to see the banter between him and Sukuna, and then also to see like Gojo actually being really into it, because it's like, yo, I can finally like go all out. Yeah, like I haven't had this in like forever, so. It was like...
That was awesome.
Yeah, give it a lot of energy. So that was kind of like severely missing from the downer and devastation like that were like mostly the past two arcs. It's just like... Things aren't looking good for humanity. It's still not looking good, but I... Yeah. But no, well, no, definitely not now. I meant like, you know... Yeah. Definitely not now.
Definitely not now. I think you bring up such a great point about like how much fun it was in the fight. Like there were so many lines that were like genuinely funny. Like they blow up a couple buildings and Gojo is like, I'm blaming this on you. And Sukuna is like, as if they're going to believe that. And then Gojo remembers they're being like live streamed by the fucking crows. Yeah. Like something like that. Or when Sukuna summons the two things and he's standing between them and he's like, you look like an alien kid. Like just the like taunting back and forth stuff. I think part of what makes it so funny is like the in-universe shit talking and then the fandom shit talking is some of the funniest I've seen. Yeah. I gotta give props to the JJK fandom because, you know, obviously, you know, bad eggs in every fandom, whatever. I haven't seen a fan base this funny in a while. Like the fraud Kuna memes, everyone making jokes about it. Like I've seen so many funny memes the past couple weeks, most of which have come back to bite Gojo fans in the ass, unfortunately. Yeah. But I've just seen so many funny memes of people commentating on the fight, which is also why I was so invested in the in-universe commentators commenting on it, because it kind of felt like their Super Bowl. Like this is their big Super Bowl, and everyone's got a thought, everyone's got predictions, everyone's reacting in real time, and it was a very cool meta moment for us to be on the same page with the characters.
Yeah, it felt fun, like following it. So that's why like Giga had us all just on the edge of our seats, and that's why this whole moment just blew up when the outcome happened in the way that it did. He knew what he was doing. My wife is convinced. Even though, like, she knows, sort of, because, like, she's heard the spoilers, and she just watched the anime episode with Gojo getting sealed. She's, like, convinced that he's doing this all on purpose, that he knows.
No, he did. No,
that he knows the reaction he was going to get and the publicity, and he's doing this all on purpose.
Do you know what happened? I found out. You know what he did? When Nobara was her first appearance in the anime, that's the chapter he killed her off in.
Oh.
This isn't his first time. He's been doing this. He did it on purpose. He took a break last week to do this and screw us all over. Talking about an emotional roller coaster. It's just been a JJK week. My week has been completely ruined.
But you asked earlier. She's also like feeding me like that there's theories now that Gojo's going to come back because his head is still intact.
Well, that is so here. Let's get into the copium section now.
All right, let's go. Welcome to the copium section.
Let's go full cope. Okay, cope squad. Let's talk about why we think Gojo could come back. Let's get into it. First things first, as you said, when Gojo was taken out by Toji initially, he's like, you should have severed my head. He learns reverse curse technique, and so we've established they should go for the head. They did not go for the head. His head is intact. His body is not intact. Yeah. But in theory, when he was taken out, his cursed energy was at an all-time high. He could, in theory, heal himself. What do we have that would corroborate this, given he had such a good send-off? Well, in the chapter itself, Gojo was talking to Nanami about his downfall. and when Nanami died, right before, he was fantasizing about going to the beach, going to Malaysia, and then he talks in this chapter about how he spoke with Mei Mei beforehand, and she said, if you want to change yourself, you go north. If you want to remain the same, you go south. The title of the chapter is Go South. So that could either be saying Gojo is going south and he's going to remain dead, or it could just be part of the conversation he had with Nanami, who did say go south. And everything in this chapter would indicate that Gojo would want to go south, but it could be a switch up and he does go north and he comes back. Maybe not as the strongest, maybe he just comes back as Gojo Satoru and that would be the change. Or maybe he comes back stronger than ever. I don't know. This is another one of Gege, in my opinion, another one of Gege's. We are going to put enough hints in case I bring him back later on, just in case. But it could be, it could happen. We do have the evidence to track in case it does happen in the future. We can harken back to this moment.
It could be an easy, like, he's at the airport with them, and then they're just like, you know what, Gojo? You can't die just yet. Pushes him on his back. Go north. And then that's it. He's back. Could be as simple as that.
I could see it being satisfying, even though he did get a good send-off this chapter. I could go either way. It'll just be interesting to see either way. Yeah. And then the most out there theory, which I think is really funny that I never would have thought of, is, do you remember that guy, Takaba, the like comedian guy who's...
Yeah. Oh God, you told me about that. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, so the theory is this guy, so his curse technique is essentially, he's kind of blissfully unaware of his curse technique. If he thinks something is funny, he can make it happen. And I saw the panel again because people posted it. They said he has a power that could rival Satoru Gojo. And so people are like, what if he just thinks it's the funniest thing in the world that Gojo comes back to life?
Oh my God.
Could it happen? It might happen. That's the real out there one. I don't know if that would be satisfying, but it would be kind of funny.
That's like his sick sense of humor. Like, oh, hey, it's so funny that, it'd be funny if he just came back.
That
would actually feel very meta. Like, just Gege being like,
yes.
It's very funny if he came back.
Would you feel like pissed if he did it that way? Would that be kind of funny?
I don't know. To be honest, at this point, I don't even know what to expect, because after the whole way that Maki got her, became fully realized towards the end of the Culling Games with the two, like the samurai guy and the sumo wrestler guy that came out of nowhere, anything can happen at this point.
That was pretty cool, though. I like how that was happened.
I don't even know how I feel about it, to be honest. I gotta be honest. I feel like you could take it one of two ways. It's just like, yo, that was based. Yo, that was some Deus Ex Machina bullshit. Like, what is that? And it's so random. And I feel like I'm clearly in the middle, or I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. So my question to you is, okay, I do think it would be funny. If he did that, I'd be like, okay, you know what's... So my question to you is, like, when you read the chapter, because, like, I'm probably in too deep, because I keep asking Onimaro, for context for everyone, I keep asking Onimaro his opinion on things, because I've realized that I'm, like, definitely I'm too deep in the sauce. So I need, like, sane people to kind of, like, give me a reality check. So that's how I'm referring to Onimaro, as, like, the sane person out of us on this. So, I feel like you're enjoying yourself. Probably, like, you were kind of like, oh, I like Gojo, I don't know. How do you feel about his character before and after this fight?
I feel like before the fight, I was okay with, like, Gojo. Like, I didn't, like, hate him or anything. He was there. He was cool. But I don't know. I think the fight really turned me around on him. I'm like, hey, you know what? This is kind of nice. It was like, I feel like he's shining the most here in this fight, because now he can actually, like, feel like a character that's, like, doing something, versus just, sort of like a safety net that he existed as before, where everything went to shit and then he's just kind of there. Even though he's entertaining, he's kind of there that just, like, is able to take out any really big threat and makes everything feel sort of safe. So
I think that's, I agree. I think, I think he's an interesting character, which we can kind of get into in more of, like, a, outside the series point of view, like more of a community perspective. But I do think, as people, I think our chat is in agreement too. Like, we've all kind of discussed this on this. I think this chapter did as much as I'm in such a torn part because I think for the most part, even for fights that I'm really invested in, I'm really okay with like putting my feelings aside for characters for writing, so to speak. Like, you know, if one character needs to lose for the sake of the story, I'm okay with that. I'm very good at accepting it, and I'm okay with accepting the outcome of this. But this is probably one of the few fights where I'm really like, it might be better for Gojo's character to stay dead because he had such a good send off. But like, damn, if they bring him back, I'm not mad. Most of the time I'd be mad. This time I'm not mad.
I mean, if Gege brings him back, he's doing it to himself at this point. He can't even complain after this about Gojo because he finally got he finally got his dream come true. And if he does this, that's on him, man.
Yeah, that's on him. No complaints.
But yeah, no, and I think I also came around on Gojo a little more after like rereading the flashback arc and like seeing it a few more times and kind of wrapping my head around it. I'm like, oh, okay. So like I got to understand Gojo's psychology like a little better and like kind of his motivations. So that really helped a lot. And I feel like that actually has been like, this has all really been set up since really that flashback arc from then until now. If you think about it, it's a pretty good arc and send off to have started it there to kind of show you like what sort of made Gojo, getting him sealed to see like, okay, what a Jujutsu world without Gojo would be like, and how everybody's kind of fucked. Then bringing him back to instill hope again, and then seeing like, okay, this is what we were missing, and then to take him away and be like, okay, that was his whole run. So,
and that's yeah. Now no hope. So I thought of this kind of yesterday when I saw some complaints about him not caring about his students, or like people were like, why does he not have more regrets over not being able to change like the Jujutsu sorcery world more? And something I thought of that I thought was kind of cool was like, Gojo might not have made systematic changes yet, even though that's kind of all up in the air. Like, we don't really have systems going on now because the world is in chaos. But two of the people who directly benefited from Gojo believing in them were Yuta and Yuji. Both of them, without his interference, would have been secretly executed just on the spot. No questions asked, because they were too powerful, too uncontrollable. Like, Yuta with his cursed spirit had no control, and then Yuji as Sukuna's vessel, uncontrollable. Gojo was the only one who could keep them in check if something went wrong. And those were two people who he went to bat for because he believed in their potential. And I fully believe that those two will directly be responsible for taking down Kenjaku and Sukuna in the final battles. I think those two will be the ones. So I disagree with people saying that like Gojo hasn't made his impact on the world, because him believing in these two people obviously means a lot to them. There's a reason we saw their two reactions to his death in this chapter. Both of them looking completely upset. They have the strongest connection to him. And I think those two, I think Yuta will be the one to face Kenjaku. I think that's going to be an interesting fight. Also because we've seen in this past anime episode, Kenjaku doesn't see the potential in Yuta, which is interesting because as we know, as manga readers at this point, Kenjaku's the guy with the 1,000-year plan. He sees and thinks of everything. So I think him underestimating Yuta will come back to bite him. And we know Yuji and Sukuna, that's been the fight from the get-go. I think it's going to be interesting to see their philosophical differences come into play as they fight inevitably.
Yeah. And I think you could also throw Megumi in there too, because if you think about it, Gojo took him in and sort of like raised him when he really didn't have to. And that was a big part of it. And also like there's instances in the series where he's trying to like guide Megumi and tell him like you gotta like be a little more selfish and not like be self-sacrificing and kind of shoot for the fences, and like, you know, he's like trying to help him because he also sees like potential in what he could be. So, you know, I wouldn't count him out as part of that too.
Yeah, I do want to see if Megumin has... I gotta say, no matter what has happened in the series so far, no one has been screwed over more than Megumin.
Yeah.
Can we agree?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he still doesn't know Papaguro is dead.
Yeah, he doesn't, and he doesn't even care about that one. He's like... He
does it.
You know, by his own hands killing his sister and now Gojo. Like, we saw how Yuji felt about killing people when Sukuna took him over. He took that on, and he didn't even know those people, but that was obviously a big turning point for him. Now with Megumin, it's like I feel for him. I wouldn't want to come back. I'd be like, nah, I'm not coming back.
That's
But
if Sukuna vacates his body. He might that's it. Be in this one for the long run.
that's brutal.
Because now that you realize, like, the implications now are really like, it really changes things up for Yuji because he no longer has to get executed. Like, Sukuna's not in him anymore. So unless
He's really just here to fight for the sake of the people around him, I think.
Unless he becomes like a OP cursed object, and then he'll have the execution order back on him.
Well, yeah, I don't know who's going to execute him. We saw that shot of all the elders killed.
Yeah.
Dude, I saw an interesting thing on that. If anyone has insight on this, please let me know, because I didn't think it was totally clear. Did Gojo kill all the elders, or did Yuta and the speech guy, Inamaki, kill them? Who killed the elders in that one shot? I thought it was Gojo, but someone else said it might be Yuta.
Gojo killed all the elders.
You saw that one shot. It was like a couple chapters before the beginning of the fight, where he's talking to the one old guy who's the principal of Kyoto, and then it's like it shows a shot of all the elders killed. Okay, Gojo did kill the higher-ups. Good. That's
Okay.
at least one dub. Okay, that's what I thought.
Oh, then someone else says, no, Yuta and Inamaki did.
That's what I thought, because they have a shot that was kind of... So they have the reason I thought of Yuta and Inamaki, which obviously Silver Mage did too, they have a shot of like both of them leaving the same place where they got the execution order. So I could see them doing it just without like Gojo knowing, just being like, yeah, no, we're done. We don't need these guys. These guys are out. And you know what? Deserved. Those guys have caused way too much shit. Actual dumbasses. Hate them.
I don't think I noticed that the higher-ups being killed, actually. I might have gone through that really quick. So, like, all the higher-ups are dead.
Yeah, all the higher-ups except the guitar guy are dead. Yeah, okay, Yuta told Inumaki, thank you, after we see the elders dead. Another Yuta dub. Let's go. Or Inumaki, both of them dub. Big dub.
So now, like, there are no higher-ups. That's it. Like, pretty much.
Except Gojo. Except, not Gojo, except the guitar guy.
Yeah, the guitar guy and, I guess the other two clans are left.
I guess the one clan.
Kinjaku took over one of them, so...
oh, yeah, he did. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Jujutsu Society is kind of fucked.
So, systematic change. There's no system, so that's a change. Oh, that's so funny. So, I'm reading back our chat. Sorry, guys, playing catch-up, because I've been doing the hand signals and just going crazy. You know how magicians cut their assistants in half and then make them come together?
Oh, no. No.
I saw someone say... I haven't seen a death affect me this much in a while. And I agree with that. I don't know the last time I've seen a character death affect me this much.
Should we use this to transition to our whole, like, commentary on the whole reception to Gojo's death and how that's been?
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. That definitely goes in line. And then, you know, we've been bouncing around in a good way, so I'm down to do that. So... Obviously, we like talked about how we found out about it, not from the chapter, not even from reading the leaks, but from Twitter, people posting about it. Yeah, so you saw it on Wednesday as well. What have you seen besides our, you know, the usual people posting about it, and besides my seeing someone talk to the Taliban about it?
I mean, there's just been quite a few things, like... I've seen streamers and idols crying over getting spoiled. I've seen I think you sent me the video of the wall at the subway in Chile. They had just like a Gojo shrine.
Has everyone seen the shrine in Chile that's made under? It's like this ad for like hidden inventory for season 2, and people are leaving like flowers, notes. They like they're kissing the picture. Has everyone seen that? Because I saw some videos taken down. I've saved it just to mark that this has happened. That's probably the craziest thing I've seen in a while.
So was it like the ad was like already there and they just put stuff?
Yeah, it's like at a train station.
Oh, okay. I thought they like literally posted up the whole like picture of Gojo, but that's still pretty crazy though. Like the outpouring of love for Gojo.
I think what gets me is that what's so interesting to remember is like obviously we're not in Japan, but like it's very much an international thing. Like people around the world are keying into this no matter their location, and it really kind of felt like a worldwide canon event. I don't know what to say. Like I think it's so wild. I think it's just so wild. So like, you know, I'm in the weeds too much. I'm obviously been a Gojo fan. Actually, I gotta comment. I gotta say, I have not been like a hardcore Gojo fan for like a while. Like I saw season 1 when it came out in 2019, 2020, and Gojo was like my favorite. But then I started season 2, saw the hidden inventory arc, and then binged the manga. And that's when I'd say I like really got invested in his character. So I'm kind of a fake fan. I've been a short-term fan of his, but I think something about his popularity has always been very interesting to me because we've seen a lot of good-looking characters who have a lot of fangirls. We've seen a lot of OP characters who have a lot of fangirls and fan guys, so to speak. I'm kind of referencing the shipper Tumblr female community, and also like the power scalers, let's say more of like the meatheads who are like, who would win?
Yeah.
This guy versus this guy. So he's kind of captivated both of these fandoms, who both sides of the fandom. And both of them kind of like, when one side sees the other side getting attached to a character, they kind of like cool off on them. You know, like I don't think the meathead side of the fandom like when fangirls get on their characters, and kind of vice versa, but like fangirls probably don't care as much. But like, it's, you know, oftentimes what I'm trying to get at is like, when a character gets too popular, people kind of cool off on them. And they kind of are like, wait, they're not actually that good. They're not actually that cool. And I haven't seen that happen with Gojo, which is something I find very interesting.
It's because he's the strongest.
He's just the strongest. But it's also like, it's so interesting just to see how his popularity has only grown over time. That's what I find interesting. What do you think about it as like also a new, like, we're both kind of new Gojo fans, so to speak.
Yeah, we're just freshly minted Gojo fans at the worst time to be a Gojo fan.
The worst possible timing.
He was just off screen, so I don't know. I think I feel like the appeal makes sense. I feel like there's not enough. You don't see Gojo is not like completely an enigma anymore because you know like his past and all that stuff and kind of went on, but like you kind of haven't seen like enough of him to be tired of him. He still has the appeal of being like, you know, for the power scalers the strongest, and then also for the female fans like being good looking. So, you know, there's kind of nothing going against him, because usually people kind of cool off because when they see like enough of a character, they're just like, all right, they're not that great, you know. They were kind of good in the moment, but Gojo still is able to kind of retain that because again, you only see him in like sprinkles.
Point, because he is, you know, he's got main character vibes, but he's not the main character. We see him here and there, and like, you know, even his season 1 screen time, you know, like they'll show him, he'll have some cool fights here and there, but it's not like he's there for the majority of the time, I guess, to speak.
And like, again, there's not a lot of moments or big decisions that you have to see, because a lot of times people like will cool off on a character, get mad at a character or something when it's like they see them like fuck up like all the time or do this or do that, and like, oh, they could have done this. But like Gojo, he can kind of be the cool sensei in the background that kind of fucks off whenever he wants to, comes in, saves the day, and then goes again. So like that's kind of like why it's harder to hate him.
A good point is like, I guess one of the good times when like Geiji kind of like withholds information, withholds screen time, actually does kind of like work to the benefit of everyone. I think it's just a very interesting phenomenon. Everyone's saying he's 1 in a million. Because what I was thinking about is like, you know, we've seen in like the modern anime sphere, especially I'd say, you know, My Hero Academia came out, huge hit. You know, we got to see like who were the popular characters, who left an impact over time. Then we see Demon Slayer, kind of similar thing. And then Jujutsu Kaisen came out, kind of like the third wave. And, you know, all had different phenomena. We had COVID, we had the pandemic, like a lot of people staying inside more, seeing edits, seeing characters, like, you know, getting more attached to people. But what I find so interesting is that, like, even though I think even though we know that like Demon Slayer was a bigger phenomena, I don't see the characters making as much of an impact as Gojo. Kind of similar with other popular series where like I have not seen a newer character be as charismatic, fun, but also like emotionally connected, like having that emotional appeal that we've seen in like Hidden Inventory and recently this chapter. Like I'm seeing people write threads on Gojo, and that's more than I see for like OP characters all the time. You know what I mean? Like I'm seeing people emotionally connect to him in a way I never would have expected.
Yeah, I think Gojo's just got that charisma. He's got that riz.
I see you. I see you. Just.
I think yeah, because you're like more tackling like the broader indication of how like now you're more I don't know, like because of the pandemic and all that stuff. Like I think being inside more, and now we're like connecting more outwardly with fictional characters on a global level, like outside of the community, outside of like our niche. Now it's just kind of like widespread.
And it's just really interesting to see. I think a lot of people are very attached to him, which is why we've seen so many crazy responses. And I do think some of that does kind of go into that like idolization of some of these characters. But it's just so interesting to me because I think it's just interesting for me to see like how he's impacted so many other people in a way that I haven't seen other modern characters reach.
I mean, I definitely think the flashback arc was a big part of that. I think that definitely helped because they kind of went in with the animation and the character designs and making that look as nice as possible. It even had its own opening, so.
And the opening is really great. I mean, the amount of detail, I gotta say, I don't want to compare and say it like in a negative way because I love the Chainsaw Man anime. I think they did a really good job, even though like I know some manga readers were a bit like lower on it, whatever. I know that Mappa keeps saying that like Chainsaw Man is kind of like their passion project. Like that's the way they kind of presented it. I feel like JJK is like the ultimate passion project from Mappa. Every little thing they do elevates the source material, which I already like, but like they just go above and beyond. They're like using the openings and endings to perfectly convey the like emotional tone of things. Like you get that sense of like, youthful summer that you're never going to get back. That youthful time in summer that you look back to and you're like, oh, I had so much fun with my friends at the beach. Like that you don't really get as much as an adult because you don't get summer vacation. Like just that wistful nostalgia that is so perfect in the opening. The lyrics are so perfect. You see all of that happening. And then even in like a random filler fight, not filler fight, but the Mechamaru fight, like the one we just had. If there was any fight they could mail it in, it's that fight. And instead we get like a bonkers episode. I saw Evangelion references, Gurren Lagann references, just like besides the stupid ghosting and dimming, like craziest animation that will look good in the Blu-ray. Thank you for that. Thank you that I get to look forward to that, but like annoyed at the dimming, whatever. Like just the craziest stuff that like it looks like they're having so much fun every week, just going above and beyond, and like these ridiculous creative showcases of presentation and animation.
Did they actually have dimming in that episode, the Mechamaru episode?
Yeah, unfortunately.
That part I did not remember. Okay, I remembered everything else though. That was a good episode, mostly.
It was good.
Yeah. They went in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like, well, I mean, they also kind of know that JJK is the moneymaker, so it's like,
Yeah, but Chainsaw Man could also, well, I guess they did put a lot of passion into it. I don't want to say that they didn't. I just think it's so crazy to see how much, like, I think it's so cool and crazy to see how much, like, creativity they're taking with the JJK adaptation.
Yeah.
That's what I think is really cool to see. And I think a lot of it elevates it, like, something, even in the manga Hidden Inventory arc, it's probably the closest we get to having, like, slice of life moments. They add like slice of life moments in the opening and ending. They give us a bit more time to breathe in the anime. Like they're trying to put in those character moments that give us some time to breathe, and I appreciate that.
They definitely did that, especially with the latest episode of the Shibuya arc, the one where Gojo gets sealed. I mean, like they really executed that pretty well.
Oh my god, can we talk about that? Because me and Onimaru, for context for everyone listening, we will like actually talk about the things we're going to talk about on the podcast, and sometimes we get too enthusiastic, but so sometimes we have to tell ourselves like we're talking about this on the episode, we're not talking about this. And that's where we left off last talking is Onimaru watched the episode. I'm like, okay, so what did you think? And here we are.
It was good. You know, I don't know. I liked how they really made you feel like not like Gojo's just gonna get sealed, like Gojo's gonna die. That's how they set it up, especially from the beginning. Maybe it's because I already know because of the spoilers. Maybe I wouldn't have felt this way if I had like no context and I just watched the episode. But I don't know, from the whole opening with like the students like talking about what they feel about Gojo, what do they think about him, and like this 4x3 like sort of old school looking like camera view.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the episode. You get all of like the music. You get Gojo going crazy, and then you get a lot more scenes than in the manga that have more room to breathe, that they linger on a bit more. So it's not just like panel to panel, he's sealed. It's sort of like, all right, let's take our time, you know, build up to this moment. And then finally, when you see him and the look on his face and the shock when he sees Geto, and then like all the memories flash back in his mind of his youth, of all that time with Geto, it's like, damn, it hits you fucking hard.
I think everything you said is so on point. I knew this would be emotionally heartbreaking. This might be weird to say. I think I was more upset from this episode than the chapter. I might be conflating both of them because, like, as you said, we knew what was going to happen. But, like, seeing this episode actually destroyed me. I was, like, genuinely upset. And I think it's, like, the framing of it is so perfect where, like, the first half, you know, it's, you know, as you said, it's kind of like the interview of, like, what does Gojo mean to you? And everyone's like, he's kind of annoying. He's kind of whatever. I don't know him. Oh, but he's definitely the strongest. And you get that emphasis, like, he's the strongest. And then you see him in that situation where he has to, like, take down who we know to be very powerful curses. And it's, like, the most cool showcase of, like, him being unhinged, him being hyped, just, like, absolutely annihilating them and taking pleasure in annihilating them, going off. And then we see the impossible situation of, like, okay, we have all of these transfigured humans. How are you going to save them while also worrying about the non-sorcerer humans? And we see the 0.2 domain expansion, 0.2 seconds domain expansion. It's so cool. It's a cool idea. You get the ridiculous running animation. It's so cool. And it's like, that's the moment he shows slight vulnerability because he just took out like 1,000 people in 299 seconds, something like that. And then when when Geto shows up and they just play, well, first they drop the prison realm thing, and that thing is so creepy. Like, it's creepy in the manga, but when you see the actual like thing open, it looks so creepy in the anime. And so he did a great job of making that like kind of horror aspect of like, okay, that's creepy, let's get away from that. And then when Geto shows and they play that music absolutely destroyed me. It's the most like romantic, whimsical song that puts you in his mindset of like, holy shit. And then the mind going through it of like, wait, is that him? Is it fake? And then he realizes it's him, and his facial expression of like shock but slight smile at the hope that he might still be Geto. Like, and then he goes through the memories. It was done. I was done.
Like my soul refuses it. It's not you.
That's the most dramatic thing I've heard. My six eyes tells me you're Suguru, but my soul says otherwise. Who are you? Like, most dramatic thing.
That was the line in the manga though, right? Because in the anime, he just says like, my soul refuse. I don't know. He didn't say the whole line like that.
I think my subs had it, but I don't know.
Okay. Cool.
We know the line.
Right.
We know the line.
Good. But yeah, no, it was kind of crazy. Definitely got the vibes there between Geto and Suguru and what, I'm sorry, Geto and Gojo and what could have been, you know? So beautiful. Like they're past
together. And it's sad. I want to give props to like Suguru's voice actor, Takehito Sakurai. Sakurai, he's like, you know, he's a goat. He's been around a while. I think there's something really impressive about like a voice actor playing the same character with the same cadence, but saying the same lines in completely different emotional ways. Like, people have shown like the original line that was said back in like JJK0, which is like Satoru, like long time no see. And then the exact one when he's Kenny, Kenjaku, I just call him Kenny, whatever. When he's him with like zero warmth. Like, it's just like completely different. And I think they did such a good job of like showing the difference and how creepy it is. Because it goes from like that whimsical music to like the creepy piano keys. And then we get the Kenny reveal, which is probably one of the best kept secrets in the series. I don't think I got it spoiled for me somehow when I got everything else spoiled. A lot of people I see just don't mention it as much. I think it's a good, well-kept secret, and that's just like so unnerving. I don't know if you felt the same way.
It's funny how we have the most well-kept secret of JJK, and now the most
the worst
the worst kept secret. Gojo dies. Oh, also there's this guy named Kenjaku who's also aka Yuji's mom.
Okay, there's a lot. That's really funny. That is really funny. But Kenjaku is like really one of the best kept secrets, and because everyone thought it was Geto the whole time, and everyone in the story still thinks it's Geto, but no, it's actually this like 1,000-year-old sorcerer who's got the plan. He's about to cause some chaos. And like unscrewing someone's head and having your brain leaking and smiling. It's like such a good, disturbing picture. I hate it. It worked well, but I hate it.
And then he's like stitching it back together, just calmly, just like, hey, I just took the time to unstitch these.
I don't know what I would have done if they kept in from the manga where he's like twirling his head on his finger. That would have been like,
all right, man.
Come on, man. Come on. Like,
yeah. Yeah. But it's good. But I think seriously, like, knowing the context of that he's gonna die really felt like they were really like, this episode was a way of saying like he's dying, you know.
It's felt destroyed.
Like
I felt
was
like
very
I died.
easy for both to compound on each other. It's like he's getting sealed, but also he's gonna die. So
that timing, I think it was intentional. I do hate everyone who led to that. Respectfully, I hate you. You knew what you were doing, and it fucking worked. I think you got the world on a chokehold. We're all upset. And good job. Congratulations.
So would you say, now moving back from the anime, going back to the event of the manga, this whole week that has unfolded, would you say the whole reaction to Gojo's death is sort of like the Princess Diana of our generation?
Well, as people have get you saying, like when they're reacting to the chili thing, it's so funny. They're like, they're giving him the Princess Diana treatment, which is the funniest thing I've heard. And just the comparison is so funny. I think it's just like the funniest thing.
It's so next level.
It's like big props to people in Chile. We got a few questions.
Oh, apparently the anime,
we got a question.
The anime did say the whole line. I guess it was my subs.
Some of the subs were weird. Sometimes they said, but I refuse it instead of my soul. No, you got to keep the soul. Got to keep the soul in. We got a question from Silver Mage. Thoughts on Kashimo versus Sukuna? The next fight in the manga that's being set up. The Thunder guy who's been around for thousands of years. He is like, he's really recent, but I think he's interesting in that he represents the old school sorcerer philosophy of like, he's the only one who, when commenting on the fight, they're not worried about Gojo as like the strongest sorcerer for their generation or like their mentor. He's like, Gojo needs this for his legacy as a sorcerer. That's what's important. And he's probably the only one who's as close to that same, I'm going to call it the like sorcerer Mamba mentality as Sukuna and Gojo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think happened with that fight?
I don't know. I actually really have like no expectations of it, just because I don't know enough about Kashimo, enough that makes me believe like, yo, this guy is like ready to pack some heat, like he's gonna bring it to Sukuna. Like, we literally just saw what has been presented to us as the two strongest characters in the entire manga. I don't know what to expect after this. It was like, if Sukuna wins, they're fucked. If Gojo wins, the story's over. So, because Sukuna is like the biggest threat. So now we're kind of like in this territory of like, we don't know. Like, I don't know who would actually like be able to stand up against Sukuna now. But again, we don't know enough about Kashimo that if there has been information withheld from us, like he actually is a big threat. Because we only know his fight with Hakari, and that's kind of it. Like, that's the only time we saw his ability.
He didn't use his curse technique, I think.
Oh.
So that's actually interesting. I didn't think about it until now because I was emotional over Gojo. Yeah. Sukuna has only used the Megumin technique, hasn't used his cursed, like he used the cleave technique, but they say that he probably has a hidden technique. Kashimo also has a hidden technique. We might be seeing some stuff we haven't seen before, like brand new things, which might even the playing field more than we imagine it will. Because Sukuna is still beat up. Like, he's still not 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. The other wild card, too, is the Angel Girl.
Yeah, because she negates everyone's curse technique, right?
That and the being that she's, like, in symbiosis with or whatever. I don't know if it's a
Yes.
curse or whatever. They want to get rid of the disgraced one, which is Sukuna. So
Interesting. I never thought of that because I kind of forgot about her, but that's a
yeah.
great point.
So I don't know if they're like ready to just snipe Sukuna off like one of the buildings, and they're just waiting to come at him now that Gojo's kind of dead. So
It's a great point. I mean, it would be interesting to see if we got like a very unsatisfying end to him, or if they're just gonna keep whittling him down. Like maybe we're gonna get like kind of like an FMA final fight like with Father, where like everyone was taking him down and Ed like landed the final blow, but it was like a team effort. We might be in one of those situations.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of tough. Because I outside of them, like, they're the only ones that you don't know enough about. That
Yes.
I would only be like they're the only ones I could predict to be able to turn the tides or to kind of change the situation as it is. Because from the current people left, it's like who's gonna be able to do anything?
I do think the final one who will win the final fight will be Yuji. That is my prediction for what will happen with him is Sukuna. And I do think Yuta will be the final boss for Kenny because everyone has been talking about the Sukuna fight. Everyone always forgets Kenny. We always forget about him. And he's the one pulling the strings behind everything.
Wait, who do you think is gonna be the final one for? Sorry, I got distracted. Who do you think is gonna be the final one to defeat Kenjaku?
I think Yuta is going to be the.
Utah. Okay. Oh
I
yeah,
think the
'cause you
pair ups
underestimated
will
him.
be. I don't know if who will get defeated in what chronological order, but I think I'd safe to say Sukuna and Kenjaku are the two final bosses. Possibly Kenjaku is probably a bit more of the final boss because he's the guy with the plan. I think Yuji will face off against Sukuna. That's going to be their final fight, and I think Kenjaku will face off against Yuta as the final fight.
That
Also
makes
because
sense.
of the line that Yuta said that one time when Gojo was alive, which
Yeah.
whatever, still sad about it, whatever. When Yuta was like, "I can't make you kill your best friend again." That was the indicator to me that Yuta is going to face off against Kenjaku. Also, because Yuta faced off against Geto before. That's kind of been the setup. So
No, I think thematically, it's got to be Yuji that defeats Sukuna. But
Yes.
right now, currently as it is, in this moment, I don't know how Yuji can beat him. So like,
well, I think what's also interesting is because of this very vague 1 month time skip that like has been a bit frustrating. I do think you're right, and that we're going to get a lot of information revealed after the fact, retroactively. But we saw Yuji training. We saw some comments with him and Choso, the guy who's like his brother who can do the blood stuff. About they said something about like him swallowing something. It might be like I think there's a possibility that I saw someone else mention that like maybe Yuji, because he's able to kind of like swallow cursed objects and then possibly use their power, he might be able to swallow the other cursed wombs that like the thing that like Kenjaku made where it's like the three brothers, that thing?
Yeah.
Like that he might have swallowed those, and since he's related to them, he might be able to use their powers. So, and they had a line about it, and it was vague. It was not like clear cut. That might be something, that might be a game plan that he's using. And we know that he's less susceptible to Sukuna's curse technique because he's bathed in his curse technique energy. So that might give him a chance, but we don't know.
yeah. So it really can kind of go anywhere at this point, which is the craziest part about it. Can go any which way. And it could have it be a few fights in between before Yuji kind of has to face Sukuna. I don't know.
It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see. Reading back our chat. Yeah, Nakamura was amazing. He's my favorite voice actor. He killed it. Nakamura and Sakurai, the goats. Kashimo and Sukuna starts, but Nobara steps in and solos Sukuna. That's like the funniest meme, is that Nobara is just going to come out of nowhere and solo Sukuna, which is like, it can't happen, but it's funny to think about.
That's really funny. Imagine she did.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun. It has the chance, that comedian guy has the chance to do the funniest thing.
Nah, I don't accept that. That's too silly.
Also, did you see them calling, we talked about this? It's so funny, like, respect to Gege, but calling him Chat Gege T is the funniest slander name I've heard in a while.
It's really funny. It's very savage, but really funny.
It's so funny. It's a funny message. Yuji has pink hair and grows stronger by swallowing people. He's literally Kirby. I think that's a great note.
I think he's just doing whatever he wants, and I think that's where the manga's going. I don't know where it's going, just because it's
Get like an ultimate bad end. Like they go full Devilman Crybaby apocalypse ending, and it's like, nope, the good guys did not win. Society is done.
I don't know if Shonen Jump is it Shonen Jump?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Shonen Jump can do that.
Can they? They killed off Gojo. He's like their cash cow. What are they gonna? They can do anything.
He's not the main character. Like they can't have the good guys lose. That's not very shonen.
What if they're doing? What if Geji is just the ultimate madman? He's like, you know what? We're not leaving the train. The train's crashing. We're not leaving this.
Gonna go out with a bang. Just like
that would be funny.
You wanna teach the youth how to get stronger? You watch them see all their favorite characters die.
That's such a empowering message for the youth of Japan. Like, it's all over. Just have fun in the meantime, you know?
That's it.
So what was the funniest thing? I was trying to, part of my coping was like, I need to join the Sigma male mindset and like listen to all the Ryan Gosling memes with like Blade Runner soundtrack over it. But then I realized I haven't actually seen Blade Runner, so I was like, oh, I should watch this so I can fully become Ryan Gosling. He's just like me. So I watched the original Cyberpunk and then original Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, yeah.
And then I watched the new Blade Runner back to back.
Nice.
Good movies.
Yeah,
good movies.
Stuff. Which one did you prefer? Which one did you like better?
Okay, so it's a tough call because they're so funny, and that the first movie is such an 80s movie. It's like less than 2 hours. It looks good for like the time, but you could tell like people in the 80s were like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
The second one, it's almost 3 hours long. Lots of like, it looks great too, like just very different, but it's such a different, and like the time lengths and the structure. I'm like, okay, this is a great way to say like 80s movie versus 2017 movie.
Yeah.
I think I like the second movie more, but it does have the benefit of building off of the first movie. But that one scene at the end with the classic, these moments will be lost, like tears in the rain. That scene is just so like next level.
That whole scene was improvised.
Really?
Yeah.
That's why
the actor improvised it. So that makes it even
magical.
More better. More better. Even hit so much harder.
Even better.
Even better. Yeah, once I found that out, that like really, because it was that scene of that movie and it was that scene that really stuck with me, like the final parts of that film. So
yes, that's gonna stick with me the most out of both films, but I probably enjoyed just like the focus and narrative a bit more of the second film, but it also builds off the first film really well.
I actually enjoyed the second film better too, which is probably like the unpopular opinion, but I don't know, I love the cinematography in the second film. It was just so good.
Just looking movie. So thank you to Blade Runner for helping me cope with the Gojo. So
yeah, you got to get on the Sigma grind set, you know.
Yeah. Also, I do want to say one last thing if we're wrapping up. I'm not sure if we're wrapping up, but I've seen a lot of people speculate that Kenjaku is going to take over Gojo's body, and it's been mentioned both outside in, I think, Geji's interviews, but specifically in the story that Kenjaku said he cannot take over Gojo. I keep seeing people say that because Kenjaku can't use the Six Eyes technique. It's too powerful for him. So every time people mention are like, oh, what if they're gonna take his body? They're not gonna take his body. They're not going to do that. And someone said, why didn't Kenny kill Gojo instead of stealing him? Because he's too strong. Like, he's too strong for them to kill.
Yeah, it was so funny when Gojo first came out and Kenjaku was just shitting his pants. Like, it's just like
what? He's like, what are you?
Like, he's like, I have him at the bottom of the ocean. There's a curse there. We're gonna be good. And then
not good.
Gojo, 2 seconds, gets out.
I think thinking of like all of the things Gojo has done, I think what's interesting about him is when like a lot of OP characters do something, it feels unsatisfying. But whenever Gojo does something OP that like is so cool, it's always satisfying. And I think that's also part of what's hard to let go about his character is that like, you know, however you feel about his death, like this is a guy who would untouchable, would face any odds and overcome it. And it's so satisfying to kind of see him there and do something cool. And he went out in a brutal way, and it's tough.
I think I saw a meme calling him the white woman's Goku. That was kind of really funny. It was, I think it was the final page of Sukuna, like looking at Gojo and like his final words, and he was just like, "Goodbye, white woman's Goku."
It's really funny. I think that's really funny. So I think it's sad. Are you also sad, or were you just kind of like, I'm here for the ride?
I'm here for the ride. I mean, I don't know. I thought the send-off was pretty nice. It was kind of crazy how it happened, but I'm definitely here for the ride. It just kind of felt like it was coming.
If he comes back, will you be mad?
Kind of. It depends on how he comes back. That's really it.
So if they could pull it off.
Yeah, like if it's like believable, or if it's like not like just something completely like where it makes it feel really cheap. If it really cheapens it, then it's like, okay. Like if it's like, all right, next chapter, oh, he's still good. I'm like, okay, then it's like, what was all this about? How would you feel?
Same boat. I'm kind of conflicted because I do agree this is a good send off, and I wouldn't want to tarnish this in some way if he comes back in kind of like a really whatever way. So it really gets to the point where it's like, do you value his character and his legacy as a character, or do you just kind of want him around because you enjoy him and maybe he could be used in a good way, but will he ever be used as well as he was in this chapter with this flashback, with this retrospective, in the way that it made so many of the fandom think on him and remember him and like really think about him as a character? I don't know if we'll get something like that again. And so in a selfish way, I kind of want him to come back. But if I'm thinking about it as like trying to be a good fan, thinking about it in like, reasonable terms, he probably this should be the last. This should be it for him.
Yeah, because
it's tough.
Because if you think about it, I don't think Gojo really had a lot left. Aside from his students, like he didn't have really a lot left for his arc or to kind of live for post, becoming the strongest. So.
And I think the reaffirmation time and time again that like the happiest point in his life was 10 years ago when he and Geto is the strongest is, it reaffirms that every time we see it. Like if we think about his life as Satoru Gojo, not the strongest, if we think about him as the person, his life kind of ended then. That's when it's really sad to think about. Like he's just been kind of not going through the motions. He obviously had a goal, but like it's sad to think that like he's never going to be as happy as he was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and he just kind of gave his students something to kind of aim for, and that was kind of it. That's the best he could do, so.
Yeah, which is sad to think about. It's not like I don't think he was, like, friends with them, but I think that was, like, peak happiness for him. And I think that's, like, part of that feeling is really relatable, especially as you get older, that feeling of, like, am I ever going to, like, was this, like, romanticized time in my childhood or teenage years? Like, is that when I was going to be at my happiness? Is that it? Like, is that my peak? Into like not even being able to accept the present, with like Gojo could, but like also not at the same time. Like that kind of dysfunctionality and that kind of conflict in him. Like I think that makes him really compelling too. So
yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we could either wrap it up here. If we do keep going, I would like to talk about the whole manga. So
yeah. Let's ask chat. Do you guys want us to do a separate thing where we talk about the whole manga kind of like more holistically, like we go through beginning to end? Because you're down to do it, right?
Yeah, I'm down.
I'm down. So we could do that. Would you want that to be another episode since we've been kind of?
We could do it. I do need to eat, so
yeah. So we could do that another day. Quick question I got from J Delaby. Do you think Shoko is going to do something? I would love Shoko to heal Gojo somehow or something. I've wanted Shoko to do something for like hundreds of chapters. I think
Shoko's checked out. You guys are expecting too much. Have you seen the bags under her eyes? She's done.
That's just like me. I think Geiji really fumbled with Shoko. I really wish he could have done like anything. There's like so many characters where I'm like, do something, and Shoko seems like really cool. I wish we could get more into that. If we get Shoko thinking on Gojo and Geto being dead, I will be very emotional, but like I don't know. I wish he did a bit more. I want to see her do more. That's my notes.
Yeah. It's kind of very easy to like forget her because she hasn't really done much, surprisingly, since like, they kind of were a squad back in the day, and now she's sort of like been relegated to just being the school nurse, kind of just like healing people, which is an important job, but it's like, you know, you just feel like she'd be
and
she's
got such cool vibes. I wish we could see more of that. I don't know. Gage, come on.
They also hinted at she was in love with Gojo, or she was in love with Geto?
I've seen like 3 translations of that page. It's probably translated in the most convoluted way possible in the official translations. What I saw online, she's like, hell would freeze over before I would be in love with either of you. That's what it said. That's what she was saying, which also makes sense because she's thinking about it as like, you guys are these goons. Like, I'm not going to be like, you know. So they say, the way they phrase it in the translations are like, I'm in love with you. Like, heaven and earth would switch places before that ever happened. Like, really convoluted way. So I think the one of like, hell would freeze over before I'd fall in love with either of you is more accurate to what we also saw.
Okay, I appreciate that translation more because the other one didn't make sense. It was like, why would we find out that she's in love with one of them at this point in the story?
We haven't seen that, and I do really appreciate Shoko's role is kind of cool in a weird way that of Gege not the I don't give a fuck war. It's kind of a weird way of like Shoko was clearly friends with Gojo and Geto. Like, they were clearly the 3 amigos. They were the same year. Like, they obviously had a close dynamic. But it also serves to emphasize how close Gojo and Geto were. That like they were the only 2 who really got each other on that level.
Shoko and even was the Shoko third wheel.
Even she wasn't quite on that level. And I think that works both for their characters, their dynamic, and to show like the loneliness of the strongest. That kind of vibe. So
that makes sense.
But now we can give her character some time to focus. Gege, come on. Let's give her a chapter. Let's give her a chapter or something. Come on.
I don't think she's gonna get it.
I know.
If there's no time for even downtime, she's not gonna get it. Yeah,
I think, you know, we'll have to see. I'm on the coping train forever, but if this is the end of the road, do we toast? Do we toast? Do you have your?
No, I do not. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I give a toast. Can I give a toast?
Are you gonna pour one out?
I poured one out and saying, you know, you can give like a symbolic toast.
Yeah, there you go.
Let me find the line.
I still need to have my coffee, so the last thing I need right now is a downer.
I also have coffee next to me, so I'm
great.
by winning.
Prepared.
I came way too prepared. What's the full line? It's like Satoru Gojo, I will never forget you as long as I live. That's the line.
I thought you were gonna say my 6 eyes. No, it's it's you.
Okay, no, that's here's the one for so it's like 2 reactions. One, if it turns out he's dead, you know, Satoru Gojo, I will never forget you. And then if it turns out he's alive, I get the coffee going. Like, my 6 eyes tell me he's dead, but my soul knows he's alive. And then just like chugging half of the coffee, just like
that's you getting back on the grind. I believe it. He's not dead yet. We're still in this.
Manifesting it, yeah. So whichever one turns out to be real, like, just focus on that.
There you go. Or hear me out. You could take both, right? One is red, one is blue. You mix them together, you create hollow purple.
As the meme said, when are we getting lime green? We haven't seen lime green. That's what we're waiting on. Have you seen those memes?
No, I have not.
So it's like so we got like, you know, he's inventing colors for his techniques. Lime green. We need to next level so we get lime green.
How would you even get lime green? At least like red and blue, you know, that turns into purple. Where would the green come from?
That's how it's next level. He's Honored 1 2.0.
He just wakes up.
Can you get more honored than the honored one?
He just wakes up next chapter and he's like, psych, lime green. Kill Sukuna.
You know what the worst part of this is? The actual worst part, and we can hop off so you can eat in a second.
I can wait.
So, this is a Super Bowl event. I already had a Super Bowl this year, and it was a good game, but the Eagles lost. So I have to praise that Super Bowl as being a good Super Bowl, even though I lost. And now I have to turn around and praise this fight, which I do genuinely enjoy, even though I lost. So I can't even complain at Sukuna. I can't complain at the fight. I have to just take it again. So I lost 2 Super Bowls this year. Take that into consideration. I've lost 2 Super Bowls.
Are you Yuji in real life?
He's just like me. I'm just a cog in the fucking losing machine. Jesus Christ.
When you win, You don't even lose. I mean, never mind.
I'm just like Yuji. Oh my god, it makes sense.
Damn.
Thank you. Alejandro said, as a member of the queer community, Gojo can use all of the colors of the rainbow, and I say, preach to that. There we go. Get all of the rainbow colors. Cheers to that. We got another one.
Cheers with my
Cheers.
imaginary cup. It's there. You just don't see it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we got for right now. I think Gojo is the honored queer. We all love him for it. That's so funny. I mean, that's so true. Okay. So,
him and Ghetto could have been a thing. Him and Ghetto could have been a thing. If Gege allowed it.
We can talk about that. That can be in our big series discussion, which I think we're gonna do. We can figure out the timing on that.
Yeah.
So we both read the series. We're gonna both do a whole retrospective on it, go in a bit more detail for other parts.
Are we gonna do a chapter, a stream for every chapter until Gojo comes back?
It'd be funny if we have enough to talk about next week. We can be back. We can be back for that.
We'll see what happens.
That'd be funny to think
about. We'll see how it all unfolds. The next chapter is this week, right? It's
yeah. There's a chapter coming out. We'll probably, unfortunately, hear about it on Wednesday.
All right. Fingers
unfortunately,
crossed.
But
yeah.
I think we're gonna try and stick to. I think at least for you and me, like when we talk about it, we're trying to stick to official releases, which I think is good, even if we try to do what we can. But. Yeah. We could be back. We'll see. Jujutsu Weebs. That could be our new podcast.
Anyways, guys, thanks for joining us, and I think this is it. So, final toast to you guys for being here with us. Hope you.
Thank you all for being here, especially on a short notice.
Hope you enjoyed the chapter, for better or worse. Whether the actual events of it or the events outside of it, the memes. That's what makes it fun. So.
We will be there. Cheers to Gojo.
All right, cheers, guys. We'll see you on the next stream or the next pod, which should be coming out